The Indiana Fever weren't supposed to be here. Not with Caitlin Clark sidelined, not with 5 names from the rotation erased by injury, not with a roster that looked more like a revolving door than a playoff contender. Yet here they stand, celebrating a playoff berth that no one outside their locker room believed possible, and they did it with a mix of grit, defiance, and belief that turned what should have been heartbreak into dominance. It began with a statement. Game against the Washington Mystics, a 94-65 blowout that was less about scoreboards and more about survival. The Fever didn't just win, they sent a message. In the middle of it all was Aliyah Boston, steady as always, dropping another double-double and then delivering a post-game mantra that teammates couldn't stop repeating. "Never doubt yourself and what you're capable of," she told the world. Those weren't just words. They were the philosophy that carried Indiana through the darkest stretches of their season. The injuries came one after another, each one threatening to unravel the foundation. Caitlin Clark, the sophomore phenom, meant to lead Indiana into a new era, was lost after only 13 games with a torn groin. Sophie Cunningham went down. Chloe Beebe done with a knee injury. Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald sidelined. 5 players who were supposed to anchor the Fever's rise, gone. Most teams crumble when that much talent disappears. Indiana bent, but it refused to break. By the time August rolled around, the roster looked nothing like the one that opened the season. 18 different players wore the jersey at some point, like a train people were constantly trying to jump onto as it roared. Down the track, Odyssey Sims flying in, Shea Petty carving minutes, Aerial Powers becoming a spark off the bench. The pieces kept shifting, but the identity slowly hardened into something unshakable. The Fever weren't going to be defined by who they lost. They were going to be defined by what they built out of chaos. That resolve came from the top. Head. Coach Stephanie White refused to panic. She streamlined rotations, simplified the system, and leaned into the adversity rather than hiding from it. Every press conference, every timeout, every huddle, her message was the same. Stay the course. White reminded her group of their toughness, their ability to adapt, and their responsibility to one another. And the players followed. The turning point came in Washington. The Mystics came out swinging in the first half, keeping the game close, forcing Indiana into tough looks, trading baskets that threatened to keep the Fever's celebration on ice. But then the third quarter hit, and the game flipped on its head. Indiana's defense locked down with suffocating intensity. Passing lanes vanished. Shots clanged against contested arms. Washington managed only 9 points in the entire frame. 9. That wasn't just cold shooting, that was a team being completely smothered. From there, Indiana's offense came alive. Natasha Howard punished Washington inside, pouring in 17 points with the kind of veteran dominance that steadied the whole unit. Boston, unfazed by the spotlight, anchored the paint with 12 points and 11 rebounds, breaking the franchise record for double-doubles in a season. Aerial Powers surged off the bench with 15 points, 6 boards, and 4 assists, looking every bit like the spark plug her team needed. Shea Petty drilled all 3 of her shots from deep, finishing with 13 points. Lexi Hull dove on the floor, hounded ball handlers, and turned defense into transition buckets. 5 players hit double figures. Every woman who stepped on the floor left her fingerprints on the win. The stat sheet told one story, but the turnovers told the real one. Washington gave the ball away 22 times, and Indiana turned those mistakes into 27 points. The Fever only coughed it up 6 times all night. That wasn't just efficiency. That was composure under fire, a team refusing to let the moment get too big. When the final buzzer sounded, the scoreboard flashed 94-65, but it felt like more than a win. It was a catharsis, a release of all the months of doubt, setbacks, and whispers that Indiana couldn't survive without Clark. In the locker room afterward, players were buzzing, sweat dripping, joy mixing with exhaustion. Boston's words cut through the noise. Never doubt yourself and what you're capable of. It wasn't a slogan. It was the heartbeat of their season. Boston's presence has been the anchor. She isn't just putting up numbers. She's shaping the team's identity. In only her second season, she stacked 41 career double-doubles, and this year she broke the franchise single-season record. Against the Mystics, she posted a plus 29 in just 29 minutes, proof that when she's on the floor, the Fever play their best basketball. She's become more than a rising star. She's the foundation, the voice that steadies the locker room, the leader who can celebrate the joy of the moment and, in the next breath, remind her team that the job isn't done. That balance, joy and business, fun and focus, is what makes this team dangerous. After the win, players laughed about making TikToks, but Boston quickly shifted the mood back to preparation, reminding everyone that the playoffs were next. That's how culture is built. That's how teams go from scrappy survivors to legitimate contenders. Now the Fever face brutal matchups. Atlanta, Las Vegas, Phoenix. Dangerous teams in a best-of-3 format that guarantees 2 games on the road. On paper, that looks like a nightmare. But this season has already shown that paper doesn't define Indiana. They've beaten each of those teams before, with the same short-handed rotation they have now. And when they return home, Gainbridge. Fieldhouse will host its first playoff game since 2016. Nearly a decade of waiting, and the drought ends with this group. For the fans, it's more than a ticket. It's validation. Proof that this roster, tested by fire, forged something real. Indiana didn't just stumble into the postseason. They fought through injuries, suspensions, constant roster turnover, and kept moving forward. They didn't win in spite of their struggles. They won because of them. The adversity hardened them, taught them how to win without a safety net, and gave every player on the roster playoff experience as a contributor, not a passenger. Lexi Hull and Shea Petty grew into roles no one expected. Howard and Powers brought veteran steadiness. Mitchell, long a steady scorer, now owns playoff experience as a top option. And Boston, in just her second year, has become the voice of the franchise. Even Caitlin Clark's absence became part of the growth. Without her, teammates had to step into bigger roles. And when she returns, she'll join a locker room already brimming with championship DNA. The irony is almost poetic. The injuries everyone thought would derail the Fever might be the very thing that launched their future. Instead of collapsing, they discovered their identity. Instead of relying on one superstar, they built a culture of resilience, depth, and belief. For the first time since 2015, the Fever have a winning record and a playoff berth. And this time, it doesn't feel like a one-off. It feels like the beginning of something bigger. So here's the question. If Indiana can fight their way into the playoffs with half a roster, what happens when they're whole again? If you're fired up for the playoffs, drop a comment, Fever Playoffs. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss. Out. The postseason is here, the foundation is real,